All right, Cuban Missile Crisis, looking at some of the background information, the stuff you need to understand if you really want to understand what's going on with the Cuban Missile Crisis. First and foremost, you need to understand that there is a long history of American influence in Cuba. Now, historically speaking, as the United States was expanding west with Manifest Destiny, the United States was also looking south, okay, and wanting to really occupy and control more of that land. Cuba was one of those areas the United States historically wanted to control. We're going to get the Spanish-American War in like the turn of the century, where it was the United States. There was some kind of questionable circumstances around what happened to start the conflict, but ultimately Spain is going to lose their empire, the last bit of their empire, be kicked out of the Americas, and the United States is going to give Cuba independence, so to speak, but they're going to ultimately have like the ultimate last say in what happens within Cuba. So Cuba's going to have a long history of influence by the United States, which is going to cause a bunch of issues. Now, Cuba is going to be formerly led by an American-backed leader, que Batista, was going to be the leader. He was not viewed very favorably by the Cubans due to a number of his policies, and he was pretty much a puppet. So he did really whatever the United States wanted. Was more concerned with the wealthy U.S. companies, which are controlling a lot of the Cuban economy, and not so much what's happening with the individual Cubans themselves. So a lot of Cubans are struggling economically speaking, and they're having a very hard time, and their leader is not really looking at them. He's looking more at the companies and the American business interest in Cuba. Additionally, there's going to be a large issue of racism going on in Cuba, which is going to lead some problems right through here. Cubans who are darker in complexion versus Cubans who are lighter in complexion. The lighter ones tend to be treated better, have more rights, just like what's going on in the United States as well. So there is going to be a lot of issues in Cuba. Then we're going to get Fidel Castro, who's going to lead a revolution in 1959. And this is the second attempt at a revolution. The first one did not work out. He's going to lead this revolution, and he's going to change Cuba into a communist country. Now, this is something the United States does not like because Cuba is just 90 miles from the southern tip of Florida. So it is very close. This is that idea of the domino theory. If one domino falls, the next one's going to fall. If Cuba falls to communism, it's only a matter of time before Florida and the United States start falling to communism as well. So it's what happens is the United States is going to train a bunch of Cuban exiles in 1961, secretly train them as a way of hoping to overthrow Castro and remove the communist in Cuba. So this is going to start under the Eisenhower administration. He's going to leave office because he's termed up. Kennedy's going to come in and kind of take the reins of this. The United States is going to be training these former Cuban exiles in Central America so that the United States can kind of deny involvement if need be, and they're going to launch an attempted invasion at the Bay of Pigs. Now, this is going to go incredibly, incredibly poorly. It's going to be a massive failure, massive embarrassment for Kennedy and the United States, and it just does not work out well. But the important thing to understand with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs is it's going to be kind of that defining moment that shows Castro and the communists in Cuba that the United States cannot be trusted. So we get the Cuban Missile Crisis going from October 16th until October 28th, 1962. Cuba, as I was just stating, distrusts the United States, does not think the United States is going to be taking care of them, thinks the United States could easily try to invade again because they have a history of doing it, and they don't like this. Now, Nikita Khrushchev, premier of the Soviet Union, is going to come to some information earlier on in the 60s that realizes the United States has placed nuclear missiles in Turkey. Now, Turkey is very close borders of the Soviet Union, could easily reach Moscow, the capital of the Soviet Union, and Khrushchev does not like this. So he sees an opportunity. He sees Castro in Cuba, which has previously been invaded. It's a communist country, and it's located very close to the United States. Khrushchev decides that he would like to place nuclear missiles in Cuba simply as a way of kind of doing the same thing the Americans are doing with Turkey. Now, Castro is going to initially refuse to do this because he does not want to be a Soviet puppet. He is his own man. He wants to be his own leader. He does not like this idea. However, he's ultimately going to allow the Soviets to place missiles in Cuba because he recognizes the strategic importance of them doing this and how this is going to help him protect his country. Now, the United States is going to have spy planes going over Cuba a number of times. They're going to send one over, and it is going to discover missile sites in Cuba, 90 miles from the American shore. This is something that is of a major concern for the United States and major concern for President Kennedy. Kennedy and the rest of the United States government view this as a threat, need to figure out what to do. They additionally realize that there are more missiles coming by boat from the Soviet Union, so Kennedy decides to contain the problem. Now he's going to issue what's called a quarantine. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. He does not call this a blockade, because if he calls it a blockade, it's going to be considered an act of war, and Kennedy does not want to start a war. However, in all actuality, this pretty much is going to be a blockade. So the United States Navy is going to surround Cuba, not letting anything in, not letting anything out. Now, the result of the Cuban Missile Crisis is the USSR is going to publicly remove their missiles from Cuba, state that we are withdrawing our missiles from Cuba, which is exactly what the United States is going to want. The United States, though, is secretly going to remove their missiles from Turkey. They are not going to make this public knowledge because the public did not know about this. Now, this is going to be good for the United States for a number of reasons. Number one is it makes Kennedy look strong on communism. This is happening in 1962, October of 1962. November of 1962, there is an election. Historically speaking, that election, the party of the president tends to lose seats in the House of Representatives, and oftentimes it loses Congress. Now, the Republicans were attacking the Democrats and Kennedy for being weak on communism and sympathetic towards communism. This allows Kennedy to say that Democrats are strong on communism. We will fight against communism, and it's going to allow the Democrats to keep the majority in Congress. So this is very important for Kennedy, right? Speaking through here, politically speaking. And that is all for now. Questions, comments, put it down below. Otherwise, see you later. Good luck.